Welcome to Vegas Dave's Dime.
Hello everybody, Vegas Dave here. Thank you for joining me for the third installment of my series, How to Handicap Horses. Today we'll actually be getting into handicapping, but before we do, make sure you've seen episodes 1 and 2. If you haven't, click on More from King's Rule 41 over on the right and catch up. If you have, let's get started. Beyer speeds in horse racing are one of the game's best tools, and probably the single most essential one. They are also one of the game's biggest curses. But before I explain why that is, first things first, what is a Beyer speed? Beyer speeds, developed by and named after professional handicapper Andy Beyer, are essentially a nice round number that describes how fast or slow a horse ran a race. This number takes everything into account. It accounts for distance, track conditions, weather, and other little nuances. The end result is a nice clean number ranging from 0 to about 115. Horses with speed figures 60 and below are generally bottom-level horses. Horses in the 60 to 80 range are still lower-end horses, but a step up from the 60 and below crowd. Horses in the 80 to 90 range are good horses, 90 to 100 are very good horses, and above 100 are excellent horses. The elite horses in the country are those with speed figures above or around 110. But these numbers are all relative to the horses that are racing against each other today. Yes, a horse with an average Beyer speed around 45 may not be a good horse, but in a field of horses with average Beyer speeds in the 20s and 30s, he's the cream of the crop. Now, it's okay if you still aren't 100% sure what I'm talking about. As we go over examples, it'll become clear. Just keep in mind that Beyer speeds are nice round numbers that sum up how fast a horse ran a race, and the higher this number is, the better. Beyer speeds give us an excellent tool to help us understand what the horses in today's race are capable of. Horses with the highest speed figures are often the contenders, and horses with lower figures are the easy ones to throw out. So can you think of why I'd call them one of the game's biggest curses? If you said Paramutual Betting, you were spot on. Yes, it is extremely helpful to know which horses are the fastest, but that information is available to everyone. And since we're all betting against each other, much more often than not, the horse with the best Beyer speeds will be a heavy favorite and will not pay very well when it wins. This, of course, is why the series is longer than 3 episodes. We are going to have to look past the Beyer speeds and look at other angles if we're going to outsmart the betting public. Think of this in terms of sports betting. Beyer speeds are the equivalent of the most important stats, like what a football team does on offense and defense. Everyone has access to these stats, which is why when a dominant team plays a weak team, everyone will assume the dominant team will win, and most of the time they will. But looking past these important stats, how do both teams play at home and on the road? Coming off of wins and losses, against similar opponents, taking everything into account instead of just the most obvious things, will separate the winners from the losers. That being said, we can't just ignore the most important stats, can we? Of course not. So where can you find the horse's Beyer speeds? From this point on in the series, I will be showing you images from the Daily Race Form, or the DRF for short. This is the most popular daily horse racing newspaper, and is absolutely essential for handicapping games. You will have to buy these at drf.com, your local 7-Eleven, or at the racetrack itself. There are other papers like it, but none are as good or detailed in my opinion as the DRF is. I don't work for them, I'm not getting anything for plugging them, I'm simply giving it to you straight. You should buy the DRF every single time you make a trip to the races. Trying to pick winners without the stats inside this paper would be like trying to pick winners in sports without access to any stats at all. So let's take a look at a standard horse and its past performances as it looks in the DRF. There are lots of numbers here, but don't be intimidated. We'll be going over all of the important ones in this series. For now, focus on these. These are Beyer speeds. So we see here that Zetterberg's most recent race was on June 20th, 2008, and he ran an 82 Beyer speed. The race before that was on December 22nd, 2007, where he ran an 84. Generally, you should pay the most attention to the horse's 3 most recent races, since they give you the best idea of what form the horse is currently in. A horse that was running Beyers in the 90s 2 years ago that can no longer hit 80 shouldn't be chalked up as capable of running a 90 today. But anyway, back to Zetterberg. Because of the long layoff between races, I've seen enough in these two races to believe he can post a number in the low 80s today, going on Beyer speeds alone. Beyond Loaded has been very consistent in his Beyer speeds. I am confident that he can run a Beyer speed around 84 or 85 today. Falstaff Lane is an example of the point I was making earlier about separating pretenders and contenders. He hasn't even produced a 60 in his last 3 races, and glancing over the whole page, even at his absolute best he can only run a 72. There is no reason to believe that a horse running in the 50s will have any chance at all in this race, where it's clearly going to take at least an 80 to win. We don't have much to go on as far as Beyer speeds go with One Shot, since he was racing in Argentina where they don't record them. His one race in America was a 77, so we'll have to assume that's about what he'll run today. I'd spend more time checking other things on this horse that we will go over later. For now, though, we're just focusing on Beyer speeds. Furioso Star's last 3 races of 83, 79, and 79 lead me to believe that he will run a race around 79 to 81 today. And Bashert has been a little all over the place, and I definitely spend more time on him. But just looking at his last few Beyer speeds, I'd say he'll probably run in the high 70s today. Remember, you don't just add the numbers together and spit out an average. Doing that will give a fluke race, good or bad, way too much weight. We'll be going over how to find out what Beyer speeds are legit and which ones are off in coming episodes, but just pointing out here that he ran a 78 back in August of 07, then a 63 in September of 07, then he took a 9-month break and returned with an 81. I'm willing to say the 63 is a fluke because his most recent race after the 9-month layoff was an 81, and he may have been shut down for 9 months because of something that went wrong in the 63 race. The average time between races for most horses is about a month. So let's recap. We know that Falstaff Lane is a complete non-factor here, and we can throw him out of this race. All of the other horses are running high 70s, low 80s, while he is running high 50s. He just isn't fast enough to have a chance here. We only have a 77 to go on for One Shot, which wouldn't be enough today. He may improve, of course, but going on Beyer speeds alone, he doesn't cut it. So that leaves us with Zetterberg, Beyond Loaded, Furioso Star, and Bashert. Who do you like? Beyond Loaded winning this race shouldn't come as any surprise to anyone. He clearly had the best Beyer speeds, and at 5-2 on the tote board, he was a steal. We also see that our other 3 contenders, Furioso Star, Zetterberg, and Bashert, finished in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Are you surprised Falstaff Lane finished in dead last? This race is textbook for Beyer speeds. Without looking at anything else, Beyond Loaded was the easy pick to win, and since we knew the other 3 horses that could be involved today, no reason to believe we wouldn't have gotten a piece of that exacta or trifecta. I'll revisit this race a few more times to show just how easy it was. Now don't get too excited. Not all races are this easy or we'd all be very rich. This race just demonstrates the power of the Beyer speed. Now, I won't go over another full race. I'll just let you try one yourself. I'll show you horses 5, 6, 7, and 8. One of these horses wins the race, and another is an obvious non-factor. Can you tell which is which? Pause if it moves too fast. This isn't a speed exercise. Here are the results. Lit's good-looking gray was too strong to be denied here. As for Echeziu, whose name I may be pronouncing wrong but isn't worth noting anyway, he was clearly outclassed in this race, and finished in last. So now you know what Beyer speeds are, where to find them, and how to use them. Our job for the rest of this series will be finding out what Beyer speeds we should accept, which we should ignore, and what angles we can sometimes overcome top Beyer speeds with. They will be the backbone of our handicapping, though, and understanding them brings you one step closer to picking winners. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned. Next time we'll be getting into the importance of trainers and jockeys.